As you have heard numerous times, today we are talking about mission and community engagement. Um, just to sort of prime that pump as we think about that, I want to tell you a quick story. I can distinctly remember a conversation that I had with a friend probably about 20 years ago. I'm about to do my 20 high school year reunion, so I can kind of like now time frame some stuff a little bit. I know it's shortly after high school. And we went to two different churches, but we were kind of, he was in another ministry, and we were working together a little bit. And I don't know how we got on this conversation, but this is, we landed on, would you rather be at a church where there's really great preaching, or would you rather be at a church where they're known for really great service into the community? And that's a false dichotomy, I know. But he said, I want to be at a church where there's really great preaching. I want to learn. I said, I want to be at a church that serves really well. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those answers. But what I've always valued about our United Methodist Church, and what I've always seen as a strength of who we are, and probably why many of you may be Methodist as well, is that we've been a people who care about our community in real ways. That it's not just something out there, but rather a place that we feel called to serve, to care, and I've always seen that as a strength of probably most Methodist churches that I've worked in, ones that I've walked in, and probably ones that you've walked in. So it's one of the things that I've always loved about what it means to be United Methodist. Over the course of my life, and I'm sure many of you, and you'll get a chance to even attest to this yourself, I have seen that when people engage into mission, when they engage into using their hands and feet into the community in tangible ways, as much as I love a good Bible study, a day of really good mission work does more than a Bible study does in a year. A week with you in the Army can transform a student's life more than a year in our youth ministry. And that's not to devalue these things. It's just the power that I think probably many of you have experienced, and I've experienced as well, to see what it matters to our faith when we put our hands and feet to work beyond our walls, when we look beyond ourselves, when we're a church that exists not just to bring people here, but to go back out and to care for the community that's around us. So when we were, the nominations team were trying to figure out what do we talk about, just to sort of give you a quick little 3-year trajectory. 3 years ago, nominations came together and we said, hey, we need to figure out a way to realign ourselves in our mission and vision. We need to do a better job of being intentional about raising up a new leadership in the church. And so this was just one of the ideas that came out of that was let's get together once a year and invite everybody and their dog to come and see who shows up. And let's talk about what's most important. What we want people to really make an identity marker that if you call Katie First home, you know what we really stand for. And so that's what Foundry came out of. And the first year, we sort of just picked 4 big topics. We talked about what it meant to be United Methodist. We talked about how we understand Scripture. We talked about our vision and values. And then we talked about what it looks like to be a leader. And as Julie said, not a leader in the sense of you're the person in charge of 10 or 12 people, but something where we all have a part to play in the church, and we are doing a good job of trying to connect you into that. And so those have sort of been 4 big themes. Last year, we translated that into what we called our communal life, which is really just about what's it mean for us to be a community together. And so if you're here last year, we talked about social holiness, we talked about social justice, we talked about reading our scriptures in community with the Wesleyan Quadrilateral, we talked about what's it mean to belong into a small group, and what are all the various roles that we can all play a part in leading, not just you're the person that teaches. So that's sort of been the movement. This year we landed on, okay, the next piece is mission and community engagement, what it means for us to look out into the world. And that's where this year's Foundry came from, and sort of a thought about it. So let me just do this, and we're gonna you're sitting at tables so that we can have sort of a large group, small group opportunity. But when you hear the word mission, what comes to mind? Service. Okay, anything else? Evangelism, far away, okay? Action. Reaching out, okay? Fulfilling needs. What I say, what? Making a difference. Boxes full of stuff. Teamwork. Purpose. Standing up for those that can't. Community. So, say that again. Spreading the gospel. Yep. Sort of an evangelism. All right, so the map is wide. As Julie said, one of the things I hope is that we can have common language so that when we say the word mission, I know that we all come from different church experiences, and that may mean a lot of different things. And so what's it mean for us? You've already sort of expressed some of these. Global thing, you go across the globe. You do missions in India. You do missions in Africa and in China, and you're trying to convert people, or you're trying to go build wells. Or missions is environmentally charged. How do we care for our world? Maybe it's more of like the picture there on the right. You're about to do our Build-A-Bed. It looks like Army. It looks like building stuff. It looks like construction work, whether that's here locally. Or maybe it's just a bag of chips or the Blues Brothers. I don't know. It could be all these things. Blues Brothers had a purpose. So what do we mean by mission? This is our working definition for today and what we're really talking about. That mission is the intentional engagement in works of compassion and justice as expressions of and witness to our faith in Jesus Christ. If you take the word compassion, some of you have heard, works of compassion, works of mercy. And if you were with us last year and you were in that social justice class, I think Karen talked about this distinction, and you've probably heard it before. But works of compassion and justice are meeting needs in a community. It's giving food to folks who are hungry every week. It's all the things that meet people where they're at and in that moment. To differentiate that to justice, we would say justice helps us address root causes. So the metaphor that you've probably heard before is that river metaphor. And if you haven't, I think it's a good way to sort of see the distinction. If you're standing by a river and you begin to notice there's people coming down the river and they're drowning in the river and you pull them out. Oh man, gonna help them. You're doing work of compassion, mercy, whatever word you want to use. You're pulling them out of the river, making sure. And then hopefully a couple more people come around you, they help. So you got a whole community of people pulling people out of the river. This is really good work. This is important work. At some point, someone goes, wait a minute, let's go upstream. Let's figure out who's throwing people in the river, and let's address that issue. Compassion is pulling them out of the river. Justice is going upstream and addressing those issues. And, in church, and as far as we talk about community engagement, it's yes to both of those and all of those. And when I use the word, and we'll talk more about this a little bit, as an expression of, this means it's in response to our faith. Why do we go do this? We do it any other reason just because it's a response to the grace of God. It's not about anything else, but God, you've done something to me. I want to go and continue to do that. But also as a witness of, or in other language, it's an evangelism. It's to show people this is who we think God is by caring for you in tangible ways. I remember in one of my evangelism classes in seminary, there was this long, and I won't say silly, but it seemed silly discussion of, is it evangelism to give someone a peanut butter sandwich if they're hungry? Right? And some were like, yes, absolutely. And some were like, no. Have you told them anything about God? And, you can leave, we can discuss that later. But That's what we're saying. It's in tangible ways. We don't just tell people about in worship services, but out in the community through various different ways as an expression of and a witness to our faith in Jesus Christ. We'll talk a little bit more about this in our next session, but we could tie all this back then to what is just called the mission of God, the work of God in our community. We're getting on board with whatever God is doing, and we want to be a part of that. And so really God is driving this. So that's what we're talking about today, what we're focusing on, and why we are going to use the words mission and community engagement. Just to sort of clarify, this is about us getting into the community, about how we are working and serving alongside many people. It's not just service generically. There's a lot of service we do. We do service inside the church. You serve when you're greeting someone at the door. You serve when you visit people in the hospital. You serve when you're an adult volunteer Sunday night in youth. These are very important. But it's a little different than what we're talking about in an outward posture going into the community beyond the church walls. So what we're going to try to do today then is we'll have two sessions. One is just sort of a what session, and I'm not really great at naming sermons or sessions, so we got the what session. The what session is, what do we do here at the church? And so part of that's just to help us kind of see a big picture of all the things that we do that give it some organization, some strategy, we might say, behind it, that I think will help us see what we do as a church, and then what I hope can translate into your personal life as well, and what it may be for you to sort of look at your own life and think about what does mission look like, especially for me too. So that'll be the what session. Then we'll talk about the why, and just sort of a theological foundation of why this is not just an add-on to our faith. Mission is not. It's not something that we relegate to a committee at table one. You guys go do this on behalf of the church. You're the mission. We'll thank you for when you get back, but rather something that's for all of us.